Joining me now from OANN headquarters, producer, reporter for the Daily Ledger, Eddie McCoven. Eddie, it's not as simple as maybe some people have in their minds, throwing up some roadblocks at the border and saying, hey, everybody who's in the United States stays in the United States, everybody's in Mexico stays in Mexico. There's a heck of a lot that transpires of people, not just people crossing the border back and forth, but there's this thing called commerce, and a lot of it.
Well, that's absolutely right, Graham. The economies of the United States and Mexico are definitely interdependent on one another. I recently spoke to the CEO of the San Ysidro Chamber of Commerce, that's the city right on the border, Jason Wells, and I asked him if the economies of both San Diego, California and Tijuana, Mexico are intertwined.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we have a common saying that if someone sneezes in Tijuana, we catch a cold in San Diego. It's very much so. As far as San Ysidro is concerned, 97% of our customers are coming from Mexico. And at $685 million a year in sales, that's it's quite a chunk. So we're absolutely intertwined. As Chamber of Commerce, I'm often promoting businesses in Baja California as much as our own, only because to get from San Diego to there, you have to come through us. So that benefits our community as well.
And Wells says even goods imported from Mexico at various points along the southern border help to further the cross-border commerce, which he says benefits both countries.
40% of every dollar that we import from Mexico actually originated here. Every time something crosses the border, those are jobs and revenues that are being created. So, certainly on a national discussion, even a plant that is leaving the States but decides to go to Mexico versus China is a plus for the United States, because those are still jobs and revenues that are created because of that cross-border interaction.
Wells and his office had a hand in the recent redesign of the San Ysidro Port of Entry, one of the busiest border crossings in the U.S., to allow for better flow of pedestrian foot traffic, benefiting nearby businesses. But when the border was shut down last fall, the impact on commerce was exponential.
We had a border closure, port of entry closure, on Sunday, November 26th. It was the Sunday after Black Friday. So we lost upwards of $6 million just in that one day of having a port of entry closure.
And Wells also said even though the border was only shut down for one day, businesses in his community faced continuing losses over the following days as fewer people crossed the border in fear of another closure.
Last I heard, San Ysidro is the busiest land port of entry in the Western Hemisphere. 100,000 people cross every day through the San Ysidro Port of Entry. If we would just look at it from a United States perspective and not a Mexican perspective, these are people, many of them are Mexicans, who live in Tijuana or Baja California, who bring with them pesos converted into dollars, and those dollars are spent in the San Diego region. But there's also a heck of a lot of commerce that goes up to Los Angeles and even beyond Los Angeles. So that's a lot of money that's being infused into the U.S. economy. And so when you're talking in the neighborhood of near $700 million a year, just for the San Ysidro portion of that infusion of money alone, this is a huge amount of money. So shutting down the border would have a huge economic impact.
That's right, Graham. Of course, the University of California and the World Trade Center San Diego did a study a couple of years ago, and they said some $26 billion of goods was exported out of California into Mexico, and that also in turn supported around 500,000 jobs as well. So we're exporting goods down there. People are coming up, and they're buying our goods and services here. Another interesting thing is in 2018, we imported somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 billion pounds of avocados from Mexico.
Right.
Especially in California, but in the rest of the nation, we love our avocados, and apparently we like them from Mexico. But if we were to shut down the border, just imagine the toll on the economies that would first be felt, of course, at the border, but then would also be felt elsewhere in the nation as well.
But in the border in particular, the border regions, right? And it's not just California. It's Arizona. There's a busy port or two in Arizona. New Mexico would be impacted. And, of course, Texas, El Paso is one of the busier ports of entry as well, correct?
That is correct, Graham. Of course, they have a couple of different ports of entry there in El Paso. And that that city there in Texas, it thrives. It thrives on the cross-border commerce, just like San Ysidro here in San Diego County and Tijuana does.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.